Hey everybody, this is gonna be a weird one, I think. Very short, and I know I've said I'm gonna do short ones before, and it hasn't been all that short, but this one is gonna be short because I have something of a script for it, and it's not really a review so much as it is a little Pulp Diction top five. I wanted to do something for Halloween. Hopefully, I was hoping it would be a Halloween episode, but that fell through. I really, really, really need to stop saying what movie I'm gonna do on the next episode, because every time I've done that, it has not worked out. Like something's gotten in the way of the plans. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I go on a little bit of a tangent on it in the next actual episode, which is Solo, and it's a shorter one, but I enjoyed it. Yeah, these are my top five Halloween movies. And to start off this top five, we're gonna go with Young Frankenstein, released in 1974, directed by Mel Brooks. And I think we're starting this list off really strong here, because these old Mel Brooks films are just something else. I mean, Blazing Saddles, Spaceballs, Men in Tights, The Producers, and of course, Young Frankenstein. I will admit it's been a few years since I last saw this one, but I do remember it well enough to know it's a rock-solid comedy, and it's dense, with hilarious jokes beginning to end. Don't let the black and white fool you. In fact, let it be a selling point. It does so much just for the homage it pays to the original Frankenstein, because it's not so much a parody or even a satire as it is a love letter to the original Frankenstein, that Universal horror movie. And even if it has been a while since I saw this movie, there are still some jokes in it that get a smile out of me just from thinking about them. It is a wonderful, loving homage to the Universal horror film that inspired it, and pretty much every pop culture depiction of Frankenstein today. And with that in mind, I would recommend watching the original Frankenstein first before this absolute just gut buster of a comedy. In fact, you can probably make a really good double feature out of 30s Frankenstein and Young Frankenstein back to back. I think that would be really cool to do. Next on the list at number 4, we're gonna go with The Lost Boys, released 1987, directed by Joel Schumacher. If anything on this list is a testament to how my dad's taste has completely shaped mine, it's this one. It's one of his favorite movies, and it very quickly became one of mine after I first watched it. This really late night where it was just me and him in the house, everyone else was out doing something or another, and it holds a really special place in my heart because of that. It's my personal favorite vampire movie of all time, even though admittedly I do need to see a lot more. It's the camp, culture, music, edge, and horniness of the 80s, all just epitomized in a high stakes, ooh, there we go, high stakes horror adventure. The Lost Boys takes this contemporary 80s setting and combines it with the tropes and conventions of vampire horror, both new and more classical, so it would have been pretty much impossible for me not to fall neck over heels in love with this after sinking my teeth into it. It's just so wonderful beginning to end. The jokes are funny. Take a shot every time they say Michael, but don't, because I'm underage, and also you would die. Corey Feldman is, I think, one of the funniest characters ever. He's just doing a crappy Rambo impression the whole movie for no reason, and it's awesome. I think he's one of the Frog brothers. Is it Edgar Frog, I think? I don't know. I don't care to look it up right now. But he's hilarious in the entire movie. I love him so much. I think this was my first Corey Feldman movie, actually. The soundtrack is excellent. I can quote so much of it by heart at this point. And it's just such a fun time just to sit down and watch. I adore The Lost Boys, and I recommend it to everybody, and nobody watches it. Maybe Jed did, I'm not sure. Honorable mention goes to Fright Night for doing something very similar, another 80s vampire flick about kids in a suburbia type, in suburbia, dealing with a vampire, and that's another one that does this great thing where it combines classical horror conventions with a more modern setting, and I am a sucker for anything that can do that. I think Stephen King does that quite a bit. Does he? Yeah. Number 3 on the list. Probably the grooviest film of all time, Evil Dead 2. Groovy. One of the greatest single words ever uttered in the history of cinema. Everything about Evil Dead 2 is just so totally unhinged in the best way possible. From Raimi's direction to Bruce Campbell's iconic, hilarious performance that turned Ashley J. Williams from just another horror movie survivor character to one of the greatest heroes in cinema history. And I'm tired of saying he's not. This movie is a non-stop roller coaster of some of the most entertaining horror comedy you will ever have the pleasure of witnessing. I adore the entire Evil Dead trilogy and Ash vs. Evil Dead, the TV show. I go on a bit of a tangent about that on the next episode too. But anyway, I would highly recommend watching all 3 Evil Deads, or at least 2 of them, in a marathon. But if you have to choose just one, you might as well make it this bloody masterpiece of camp, horror, comedy, and gore. Number 2 on the list. Hold on, I gotta get into character for this one. Okay, how do I... Oh yeah, that's the stuff. No, I just look like Eminem. Hold on.
Thursday, October 31st. The city streets are crowded for the holiday.
Every time I hear those words, every time, I am instantly transported back to that theater seat on March 3rd, 2022, and brother, I am alive.
This is the Batman 2022, directed by Matt Reeves. I was so excited to talk about the movie, I forgot to mention the title, director, or date. That's my bad.
This is the Batman movie I'd wanted to see since the moment I gained any sense of media comprehension beyond Batman cool, Riddler and Penguin and Joker bad. Almost every shot pops out in a way so many more comic book movies should. Every sequence bursts with the calculated brutality that every good Batman needs to have. Every lead performance manages to stand out in ways both subtle and in your face. Paul Dano's Riddler draws inevitable Heath Ledger comparisons, but he's off the wall in a manner more than different enough to set him apart, and I love him for it. It may be just a year 2 Batman story, but make no mistake, this is still an origin, if just for a specific aspect of the character. Don't think I forgot this is a Halloween list, though. This movie reeks of Halloween from start to finish, in a good way. A lot of Batman stories have that kind of atmosphere anyway, but Reeves's film has the advantage of partially taking place on the holiday. This may very well be the best live-action Gotham City we've gotten, aside from maybe the Gotham from Gotham. It's dirty, it's violent, it's like this movie's banger soundtrack because it is just grungy. I am madly in love with this movie, and I could talk about it for days on end, but I'll try to keep it brief. Check out the full podcast episode on this one for more thoughts on it. I did it with my friends Jet and Grayson. It was great. Reeves' direction slaps, Pattinson's, Dano's, and Kravitz's performances are full of these detailed subtleties and these intense, deeply intimate emotions. Fraser's cinematography pops like a balloon in an OK Go video, and Giacchino went hard enough on the soundtrack to make me feel like I could fight my way through a gang of thugs. The movie is just full of the exaggerated swagger of an emotionally repressed white boy with childhood trauma. And finally, number 1 on the list. This one I did not prepare a script for. I'm gonna wing it. Let's see how this goes. Might require a lot of editing. What else would it be? It's Halloween. Halloween 1978, directed by John Carpenter. Oh shoot, I didn't mention the dates for Evil Dead 2 or the Batman. It's fine, whatever, I don't care. I mean, come on. What would this list be without this movie? It's Hallow-frickin'-ween. I'm not gonna say a bad word, but I could. And I would. The soundtrack, the direction, this paranoia. It didn't invent the slasher genre, but it popularized it. Everything that was in every slasher movie afterwards did it so. It did better. It perfected the subgenre before it could become a subgenre. It is the perfect slasher. It is everything that all these movies want to be so badly, but it is those things. It doesn't have to try so hard, but it goes so hard anyway. It's this darkness that lies beneath the image of this bright suburbia, right? Kind of like The Lost Boys, which came so much later. But it's the emotionless of the Michael Myers face. Just Michael Myers as a character. This brooding figure. He could be, I don't care what they say in the sequels. He's not Laurie's brother, because he could be anyone. This is just some guy that could be in that could appear in any neighborhood. Just an evil that can come to any little town. Nobody is safe. I really wish I'd prepared more to say, but you know what? I'll have a whole episode on this eventually anyway. Don't you fret. I will. Because how could I not? It is a masterpiece. This is pretty much a comfort movie for me. I've seen it a few times at this point, and I will see it many more before the day I die, because I love Halloween, and I love Michael Myers, I love John Carpenter, I love his direction, I love his soundtrack. It is one of the greatest soundtracks of all time, let alone one of the greatest horror soundtracks ever. I'm so glad this movie exists. Halloween. And that's my top 5. Thank you for watching or listening. Remember to like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Follow on Spotify. Give us a 5 stars. Follow on Instagram.
Special thanks this episode for Kevin MacLeod. Use some of his background music, Darkest Child, in this one. Maybe you recognize it from old Dead Meat videos.
And that'll be all for today on Pulp Diction. Thanks for listening to this little extra thingy.